This is Akasha Grahin. On behalf of the exhibition, I'll be your docent today. My role here is quite simple. I'm here to guide you through the way this work breathes and remembers. Now, I'd like to share the story with you. This work begins with an ancient Bodhi tree pillar tree that connects the heavens and the earth. Etched into the wood are the ancient symbols of Fuxi and Nuwa, the point where order and life intertwine. Resting above them is a golden device that responds differently to each observer. Sometimes as a wave, sometimes as a voice, sometimes as a light that feels impossibly old. Before we begin that story, perhaps we should first understand what Akasha truly is. Every journey begins with a moment that feels like a signal. Small moments that seem trivial, yet too strange to call coincidence. That day, a cigarette you tossed landed perfectly in a tiny drain gap against all odds. And the next day, it happened again in the exact same spot. The synchronicities and déjà vu that followed felt like reality was starting to loosen, almost like a small opening that appears only to those who notice. Follow that opening, and you arrive here, a hidden door beneath the surface of the world. This door separates the world you know from a world of unwritten records. Open it, and you step into the space that leads toward Akasha. Akasha is often called a space, but it is not a place with form. It is something that exists before time, and flows deeper than language. The breath of Nuwa, the flame of Fuxi, and the lingering echoes left by humankind through each era, all of them continue here as overlapping waves. Akasha is open to everyone, but not everyone can truly see it. Now, you are standing at the very moment of entering this stratum of memory. I will go ahead and wait for you beyond the door. This is Akasha, a place where time and space return to their origin, and every memory takes shape and gathers like books in a library. This place is not made of matter, but of emotion, will, and the traces of action, preserved as four-dimensional structures. We are being shaped by the great cycles of water, fire, earth, and air, living within a vast, continuous flow. This library is the layered sediment of those ages. We're pulling these ages back out, just to check which current we are actually standing on right now. Who knows? We might already be riding a completely wrong wave.
Herr Dürer, ich danke Ihnen. Ihre Bilder haben das Evangelium weitergetragen als viele Predigten, und Ihre Worte haben mir Mut gegeben, Meister Luther. Es ist Ehre genug, sie in Kupfer zu schneiden.
Albrecht, nicht die Werke retten uns, sondern das Vertrauen auf Gottes Zusage. Wenn das Herz daran hängt, ist es frei.
Deine Worte klingen wie Licht in einer engen Werkstatt. Ich habe gemalt.
The age of water was a time when emotion itself served as language. People hid none of the tides rising within their hearts, letting both their pain and joy flow openly into the world. Martin Luther found his voice on the wavering sea of faith, and Albrecht Dürer pursued the human face and gaze so relentlessly, because their world moved through emotional waves rather than reason. They walked different paths, yet witnessed the same trembling currents upon the waters of the human heart. Nuwa stood at the very center of that flow. Even as she faced the fractures of a broken world, she gathered the shattered pieces and shaped life once more. From clay mixed with tears, earth, and a faint glimmer of light, humanity took its first breath. Her breath became wind, and that wind spread like the world's first song. The light of the water age was warm, yet always unsteady. Emotion revealed truth but summoned confusion in equal measure, and human hearts rose and crashed like waves, speaking to the God. Faith flowed not from the mind, but from the heart, and people felt long before they thought. But when a current lingers too long, water begins to whirl in place. The emotional sea thickened into a heavy fog, and memory began to lose its direction. Even the beings born from Noah's fingertips sank back into their own tears. Then the world released a faint, trembling sound. The sound of evaporation, a sign of change. As water began to burn itself away, emotion no longer stayed as ripples but sought to take form as flame. I remember the air of that moment. Numa looked to the sky one last time and said, "When the flow stops, the light must carve a new path." And as her words faded, across the surface of the water, a tiny flame began to rise. That was the first sign of the age of fire. And I was born, at the very boundary between those two ages. When the flow of water finally stopped, the world began to warm, quietly and slowly. Emotions that could no longer move turned into heat, and that heat opened the way to a new age. The age of fire was built on the sea of emotion, and became a time of will and intention. If Nuwa carried life forward, then Fuxi was the one who gave that life direction. Their bond cannot be explained by love alone. They shared compassion that faced each other's wounds, a belief that cut through confusion, a loyalty that stayed to the very end, and a resolve to turn feeling into form. These were the forces that guided them. Fuxi's fire was not destruction, but clarity. Instead of burning away what water left behind, he shaped those traces into a new kind of order, creating a path for the world. And where the fire passed, the first forms of earth remained. Fire opened the way, and earth began to hold it in place, preparing the ground for the next age. I can still see that moment clearly. Where fire passes, earth always remains. The heat of will cools and begins to take shape, and that shape becomes the framework of the world. The age of earth was a time when order carried real weight. Thoughts turned into systems, choices became responsibilities, and desire settled quietly within structure. If water shaped emotion, and fire shaped will, then earth had the power to hold them both as memory. But when form becomes too rigid, the heart stiffens, and the world loses its breath. Then, a gentle tremor began to pass through the world. Across the structures held up by earth, the wind started to move. I remember the sound of that wind, the way it carried the pace of a new age approaching, as everything trembled softly, and almost weightlessly. That was the beginning of the age of air. The age of air was the first time the world truly felt light. When I describe this age, I often speak of a boy who once chased a rainbow. He took his first step simply to reach a rainbow hanging at the edge of a field. But every time he reached the edge, the rainbow had already moved one step farther. The age of air lived inside that feeling. A goal always just out of reach. Direction shifting again and again. And a destination that wavered with every gust of wind. People could reach each other faster than ever, but they could drift apart just as easily. Connections formed in an instant, and disappeared just as quickly. Its confusion didn't come from having too many paths, but from speed appearing before understanding could catch up. So people often realized too late that they hadn't gone far away. They had simply been scattered.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
And when the boy finally became an old man, that was the truth he came to understand. The rainbow wasn't unreachable. It simply wasn't something meant to be caught. What mattered wasn't reaching it, but the direction he shaped while walking toward its light. The age of air was the era that asked us to find our own direction. And the place we stand now is right at the center of that lightness, that uncertainty, and that possibility. So you've made it all the way here. The final page of any record is always this quiet. Don't worry, anyone can lose their way for a moment in the flow. That, too, becomes part of the record. Now then, let's go back. Your next page is already opening.
Swing.